My name is Aaron Mosoke. I'm a senior associate for special projects at Upskill. At Upskill, we equip young people, youth, with today's most in-demand, but also ready-to-work skills. We launched the 42 days of digital marketing in a way of using the 42 days of the lockdown to socialize around this particular topic, digital marketing. Today's masterclass dives into the digital marketing strategy. Today's speaker is John Birungi Babirukamu. He's a digital marketing strategist and consultant. We all know that the secrets behind today's modern day marketing channels is around digital marketing. So how you have to adapt your objectives to external change, how to attract customers online.
Yes, so my name is John Birungi Babirukamu, and we're going to be looking at creating a winning digital marketing strategy. And so key of what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce myself, then we do we look at business strategy using the source stack model, as well as the 5 W's and H. And then we're going to look at a little bit of personal digital strategy using Ikigai, which is the Japanese concept of being. Now, we're going to look at the source stack, but before we dive into it, we need to understand what source stack means. But even before we get into source stack, we need to understand that when you're creating a winning digital strategy, you have to begin from the top, which is the company vision. You cannot start creating a digital strategy without understanding the company vision. And it is from the company vision that you have your company goals. It's from your company goals that you have a strategic plan for your company. Now, the strategic plan for the company usually can be 3 years, it can be 2 years, it can be 5 years. But that strategic plan then dictates your annual marketing strategy. And it is from your annual marketing strategy that you dictate your digital strategy. So it has to come, you have to understand the 4 that are above before you start creating a digital marketing strategy. Because if you have no coordination with what is above the digital marketing strategy, then unfortunately you lose the point. You end up, targeting things that are off point and whatnot. But diving into what source stack actually means. Source stack is a model that basically talks. So you have to look at your situation analysis, which looks at where you are and where you want to be. Then you have to look at your objectives, what you have to accomplish to reach your goal where you want to be. Then you look at strategy, which is what you have to do to meet your objectives. Then you look at your tactics, which are basically how you execute your strategy. And then from there, you look at your key actions, which are basically, your key actions are basically things that you do, things like your lead generation, things like your websites, your website optimization and all that. So those are the actions that you take. Things that you physically do to physically do that are guided by your tactics and are aimed at reaching your objectives. And then control is basically now you doing analysis and finding out, have I hit my target? Are my tactics working right? Am I reaching my objectives? Is my strategy working? Which is why you see, those arrows, because this control very clearly tells you if any of these are working and if any of these need to be changed, okay? So this control is extremely essential, which is why we always say digital marketing without social listening is like shooting in the blind. So you must have a good social listening platform. So once you understand this source stack, then another thing that you need to look at as well is your 5 W's and H. So the 5 W's and H are basically where, what, when, why, and who. Okay, so your first one is where, which is where are you as a company and where do you want to go? Very important for you to know that. Then secondly, you want to know who is your ideal customer. Who is the one person that you really want to love your company or love your brand or love your product or your service? Knowing who your ideal customer is, then you need to know what are their interests as a person. What are their interests? What are their goals in life? You need to understand your customer to find out what makes them tick. At that point, once you've known the other three, then you need to now define why should they choose your company, your product, or your service? Why should they love your brand? So to know that, you need to understand yourself and understand your why. And then from that, you need to know when do I target them? What time do I target them? What platform do I target them on? That sort of thing. And then you can then look at how do I convert them. Now, once you have all these and you know your source stack, then I can say your strategy is pretty much set. Breaking down the source stack. So the first bit of your source stack is your situation analysis, which you're basically looking at where are we now? And at that point of where are we now, you're basically trying to do your SWOT, which is the first thing. So SWOT is basically your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the positive internal are your strengths. So here you need to look at what are you doing right. And for digital marketing, you also need to consider some of the things, some of the different metrics that we look at. So for example, things like how many followers do I have? What kind of followers do I have? Which is very essential. But this also looks at things like, do we have a website? Do we have an online selling platform? Do we have partners who help us achieve our goals, that sort of thing? So in your positives and negatives, then you need to look at that. The external factors, here is now when you're looking at one, your competitions. Very good to do a competitive analysis to know, are you doing, your competitors doing better than you? Here is where you also look at things like government policy. Government policy, is it positive, is it negative? But you're also looking at the landscape as a whole. Things like, for example, what are people who affect the landscape doing? For example, on digital marketing, what are the telecoms doing? Is the price of data, for example, is it getting lower? Is it getting more expensive? Now, once you've done your SWOT, then you want to do your competitive analysis. Now, there are three things we need to look at in competitive analysis. One is, what does the public want? Then what are you good at? And then what is your competition good at? It's very important to know these three things. Let's just now get back into the source stack. So we've looked at getting your situation analysis, understanding the market, understanding how people are using the different channels. Then your next bit is objectives. Where do you want to go? And the first thing in doing your objectives is to have SMART goals. You need to have goals that are specific. You need to have goals that are measurable. You need to have goals that are attainable. You need to have goals that are relevant and goals that are time-based. So for example, a SMART goal is saying that I want to grow my followers from 1,000 to 100,000 in the next 1 year. That's extremely specific. It's extremely measurable because you can see your different followers. It is attainable if you have the right budget and if you do the right target. It is relevant because it's within the scope of the number of Facebook followers in Uganda, for example. So then it's relevant. Then it is time-based because you have said it's within the next 1 year. So that becomes a SMART goal. And these are the kind of goals that you need to set for you to actually have a winning strategy. It's extremely important that when you market your brand, you need to market your why instead of marketing your what. If you understand the layers of your brand or the layers of what you're doing, then you can very clearly begin from the inside out, like Simon has said. The moment you get your entire team to understand your why, the moment you get your customers to understand and love your why, then they definitely will fall in love with your product, your service, and your brand. Another one that comes to mind is MTN, for example. Their why is everywhere you go. So because their why is everywhere you go, their how, they're going to ensure that they have network in every single part of this country. That is their how. Then their what is, they sell data. They don't begin with that. And it's why they also emphasize it at the end of every single video. They emphasize it at the end of every single ad, at every single radio advert and everything. They always remind you of their why. So the next is to understand your customer and understand their passions. It's extremely important for you to have a very good understanding of what your customers' aspirations, dreams are, but most importantly, for us on digital marketing and digital communications, it's extremely important for us to know what the conversations are. On Facebook, maybe your brand will probably want to do some trend jacking because, people are looking a lot at news and trivia. Same with Twitter. Or Twitter, you're going to do a lot of your events because people live in the moment on Twitter. Then you're going to ensure that you're doing live tweets for when you do have any event, for example, news story, that sort of thing. Then LinkedIn, you're going to do more career. So knowing your customer on which channel, then you're going to be very specific in how your messaging is delivered. Then you can very clearly set your objectives and your channel roles for each individual channel. So the who, once you have determined who your target customer is, you then need to know when to post to find this target customer. Because your customer's journey in their day determines how they consume their content. Now, once you've defined who your customer is and found out their who and when, your next bit is to then develop your strategy. Strategy, you're going to look at how do we get there. And a key part of your strategy is looking at your strategic pillars: internal people, your media, your stakeholders, and your partnerships. So you engage your internal guys. You definitely want every time you launch a campaign for them to understand the campaign fully. So even before you launch it externally, you want to launch it internally, through emails, through WhatsApp groups, and then you also want to have an active intranet. The internal guy, from your office cleaner to your CEO, every single person in the company fully understands the direction that the company is taking with the marketing campaign. Then you also have your media. It's important to have your media guys fully briefed and also on the right side of things. Then for your stakeholders, these are guys like regulators, government, international bodies. You want to target them with key messages get them to understand your business and why it's headed. Then your paid partnerships, you're looking at newsletter. Here you're trying to get partnerships. For example, if you're a company that has a lot of data, you want to partner with another company that has a data center, for example, that sort of thing. So it's important for you to target your partnerships with custom audiences and get them to also believe in your product. So target them with things like newsletters and whatnot. So as you're building up these pillars, you must always begin by building your brand, which is why whenever a company is beginning, or whenever a company is trying to pivot from where they are, the very first thing they do is a brand campaign, because they're trying to push their brand and make it bigger and better. So looking at these strategic pillars is a huge part of you building your strategy, because you don't only focus on the revenue drivers. That's your roof. So your revenue drivers is how you're going to make money. The channels you're going to make money from. That is always held up by a foundation, good foundation, and good pillars. Now, very quickly, the passive and active ways of digital marketing. So some of the passive ones are, things like search engine optimization, Google Business, content marketing and blogs, customer reviews, bots. This is now some of the tactics that you can employ. Infographics are basically images that explain a process. And then, online trials. I'm sure many of you have gone to a site where you want to buy a product, but before you use the premium product, they give you a 10 or 14-day trial to, test and close and, have some jive. Now, looking at some of the active ones, things that you're doing day to day. So your search engine marketing, your email marketing, your social media ads, your online PR, your influencers, your webinars. And then also building your strategy, you have to look at the three types of media. So there's owned media, earned media, and paid media. So owned media are the channels that you own. Things like your social media, your website, your blog, okay? These you own. Then there's earned media. This is now you're looking at, other people talking about you, so mentioning your brand, things like shares, when people share your posts, when people put reviews or testimonials. Then there's paid media, where you pay influencers, you do retargeting. Now, account-based marketing, which is the next bit, is basically how you target your B2B or B2G. That's business to business or business to government. The reason why I call it account-based marketing is because you're targeting an account, not an individual. So for example, if I want to target MTN, I want to get the individuals on MTN who are going to make a decision to give me that account. So the first thing you're going to do is have your sales and marketing teams sit to collaborate on companies to target, so the accounts to target. Then you're going to expand that and then look at who are the power players in those companies. Then you're going to engage with them. This is like through emailers, can be through LinkedIn articles or LinkedIn ads. Because LinkedIn, I can target, for example, the companies I want. So I can say I want technology companies, or I want telecoms. Now, once you have the accounts in, the person has bought and they love your product, then you want them to testify. That's the point of advocacy. You want to turn customers into brand advocates, because the customers, the next customer, will better trust someone they know in their industry, even if it's a competitor. Now, you're going to look at tactics. You're looking at, for example, one, what are your channel roles? So what is each channel going to do for you? And we're going to look at that deeper. Then you're also going to look in your tactics. What is your advertising plan? Okay. So how much am I going to spend? What am I going to spend on each channel? And what is my return on investment on that advertising? Then you're also going to look at your content plan. So we've already looked at the personas. So what content are you going to put on which channel, targeting which persona? Then from there, you need an influencer plan. We're going to look a bit more into that. You also need a website plan. How often are you doing SEO? How often are you updating your blog? How often are you some companies, for example, have policies where they must update their website every 3 years. That means a fresh new look every 3 years or so. Consumer funnel has 5 stages: so awareness, consideration, decision, adoption, and advocacy. Ideally, you want to take your customer from awareness to consuming your product and advocating for it. And your first step is awareness, where you're posting things, posts about your theme. Then the next part is consideration, where you're trying to create demand. You're trying to get people to demand for your product. Then decision, you're trying to look for conversion. So here you're pushing, lead generation links, or you're pushing. Then after that, you're looking at adoption. You're trying to get satisfaction. So you're engaging with customers, doing your customer care. And you're trying to drive up repeat business, because if someone is happy with their product, they're going to come back. Then finally, you're going to look at adoption, where your point is to turn influencers into customers. Now, then in channel roles, we just look at a metric that looks at revenue, news, edutainment, which is entertainment and education, and then brand. Now we just put them in opposites, because you can either build revenue or build your brand, or be in the middle here, where you're trying to do both. Or you can also sell news or try to do entertainment or edutainment. The curve for buying. You want to have your influencers here and have position them as wise experts. And these wise experts basically, once they join and start talking about a product, they lead earlier adopters to join on. And then from there, you have your social icons who then lead the earlier mass to join on. And then, everyone else starts talking about your product, leading on to the next channel of people. Now, very quickly get into your personal digital. You want to find these 4 things in your life: what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you are good at. Now, once you know these 4, then you can find your ikigai, which is the Japanese concept of being. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the strategy that we need to use as individuals in our day-to-day lives. We also talked about the business strategy, and that basically is it. So
thank you so much, John. The session has been very insightful. So much has been shared. If you want to connect with John, please look out for his LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, but also the hashtag, the 42 days of digital marketing.